You have to remind me like what. Let me X out of some of this stuff. You have to remind me. So what time is it where you are now?
4:05.
Okay. And where are you in Italy?
So I live. The region is It's we live. The big city is Naples, but we live probably like 40 minutes outside of it, like close to Pompeii, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in the south of Italy,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the first thing to address here is just the how awesome that is that your life and your world has upended and you're now living in Italy and you've been there for how long?
December. I guess I officially moved here in December of 22, so
Mm-hmm.
almost a year and a half on it because I was like back in the States for a couple months, so a little over a year, I'll say.
Right. Right. So that's something that you know, the it, to me it's obvious that that needs to be talked about first because I need to catch up. For people who listen to this, uh they're not everyone's gonna know. Again, you'll be introed in the pre-roll, but I'm curious about that kind of uprooting and that change in life of you grew up in the US. You grew up in, where did you grow up, Scott?
Long Island,
Yeah,
New
Long
York.
Island. Yeah. Yeah, and you've lived in the U.S. Most of your life. Have you ever lived anywhere other than the U.S. besides this time now in Italy? Yeah.
Nope.
So help our viewers slash listeners know how in the world did you get transplanted?
So I met a girl here in 2020, kind of a good reason to move, I guess.
That'll do it.
Yeah, we sort of, we kind of built a relationship, fell in love, all that. And then we were traveling back and forth for a while. Like, this is all like, you know, past like once we were actually allowed to travel because it was kind of during COVID. And then, obviously when it was time to take it further and neither of us, we wanted to be together. So I said, I'll just move there. I'm lucky enough to have a job where I'm able to work remote. And she is a tour guide here in Pompeii. Like, she does the archaeological tours. So,
Oh,
or
cool.
yeah, so location is important. So, yeah, so I came here and now I'm here and now we're married and
Oh
all's
shit.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Wow.
Now I just got to learn Italian and I'll be all good.
Yeah. Are you on Duolingo? How you learning Italian?
I am on Duolingo. I will say, for anyone trying to learn another language, Duolingo will only take you so far. And once you like get to the place where they're actually speaking that language, you'll realize you don't really know how to say anything or it's fun for like practicing vocabulary, but I started taking like a class from, basically I have like a tutor that go 5 times a week roughly. So he's taking me through like the actual, I don't know if you know this, but there's actually like language tests like A1, A2. There's like different levels
Mhm.
of language learning. So he's like walking me through that curriculum now, learning grammar and things. Um, but even like when I got here, I had done Duolingo and knew a little bit of stuff, and people start talking, and I didn't understand a word anyone was saying. And then I learned that in this area they speak a dialect, so it's not even
Yeah.
like straight Italian. It's like so it's been a little difficult to understand. I'm getting better and better slowly, so it's good.
Yeah. I mean, what I've always been told is immersion is king. Like nothing beats immersion, and you are immersed, you know.
That I am immersed. Yes, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah. So when did you and she get married?
That was March last year, so 23, March of 23. Yep.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So, the musician life is what brought you to Italy, if memory serves me correctly, right? You were I mean, you were in
Originally, yeah,
yeah, originally you were in Europe touring with who were you with? It was a
it was just E from Vinny Vegas, the keyboard player.
Mhm.
Yeah, he and I did. Yeah, we're just touring out here. And yeah,
Yeah. And so I mean, of course, I'm just we're gonna talk about your newest release that came out in February, which again, just want to congratulate you. That's
Oh, thanks.
really beautiful music, and
Thank you.
naturally, and I've been listening to it this morning, and then it naturally, the algorithm points me right to the release that you did in 2020, which I'm like, I don't think I've listened to that full album,
Yeah.
or if I have it. Yeah, and I'm like, so I've got all this like this catalog of Scott Siskind music to chomp on. But so you must have been writing some of those songs around the time when you were touring and met your now wife, or
Of
was it
the
later
one in
for the
February.
newest release? Yeah,
I kind of started writing that during, like, I guess when the lockdown happened. So that one in 2020, I released like 2 weeks into the lockdown. Basically, I got back from that tour over here and I released that record, and then everything closed. And I never really played shows or anything off that record, which was kind of, I was like, this is cool. I'm going to finally do like a proper solo record. Cause, up until
Yeah,
that point, it was mostly Vinny Vegas recordings.
yeah.
But yeah, then COVID had other plans, and I never really. And then by the time it was time to start playing shows, I was already writing new songs and kind of had started recording some new stuff. So yeah,
Yeah. What's the name of that record? Your first solo album?
it's called Old Ghosts, New Homes.
Old Ghosts, New Homes. So yeah, I definitely want to link to that too
Sweet.
for folks. But yeah, so back to my question. So you're now uprooted, transplanted. By the way, I should ask. I'm going to interrupt myself a billion times during
Okay.
this conversation. How does your family feel about the fact that you now are a resident of Naples or Pompeii or wherever?
I think at first, obviously they miss me. Honestly, we went back there, and then they got to actually spend a lot more time with Roberta, my wife, and now I wonder if they miss her more than they miss me. I'm just kidding. But no, I mean, it makes it even more kind of bittersweet for my mom, because now she's like, oh, I got like a new daughter-in-law, but now she can't like spend a ton of time. But my brother, his wife, and my parents came out here for the wedding, and they had a great time. My brother especially had like always wanted to come here, and he's really kind of excited about having a place to come to. He sent me, when they were here for the wedding, they were like kind of out walking around one night, and he was like, I just want to thank you for meeting a girl from here and not like Kansas or Michigan or something. No,
Yeah.
no offense to anyone listening from Kansas or Michigan, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was pretty funny. So yeah, it's weird. Like, it feels far away, and it is, but I had been in Baltimore for 20 years, so I was already like not next to them, because they're all in New York. Obviously, it's a much bigger, much further away, but it doesn't really feel that far. I don't know how to explain that. Like, it seems far when you think about it, and then when you're actually here, it doesn't feel too far.
Or any farther than Baltimore to Long Island.
Right. And I mean, even it's obviously culturally different, but I don't find it to be like shockingly culturally different. People are generally the same. The food is somewhat not the same. It's better. The pizza's better.
Yes.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like, I feel like if I were to move to like Japan or somewhere that was like very, more Eastern, more culturally different than the US, it would have been a bigger culture shock and might feel further away from home. But yeah.
That all makes sense, and I can totally appreciate your brother's perspective. Like, yeah, so that's great, and so you mentioned, I want to kind of flag this. You said that what you do for work, you can be remote. So just tell our audience, yeah, what do you do for work professionally?
Sure. So I'm a graphic designer. I had been working at an agency when COVID hit, and then they all went, fully remote, which kind of, for years before that, I was like, there's really no point in me coming into an office for this. I kind of just hang out with my friends when I'm in the office. Like, so I found it to be more productive just working from home anyways. And in April 22, I kind of went full-time freelance. So I've been doing that for a while now, which is sort of similar, just kind of interacting instead of working for one agency, working with several different clients. So
yeah, that's another point of congratulations in terms of a shift for your career, right? Like, because you've got that's when you move from maybe the dependency on another organization? Obviously, there's trade-offs, there's pros and cons to that, but like,
Yeah.
was that as an artist, was that your hope to one day just be like, no, I get to just be like the guy that people will want to come to independently from an agency? Or
Yeah, I mean, I'd always dreamt of being able to do it. Like, even like the few years before COVID, I had, taken some stints where I'm like, I'm just going to work from home for a few days. Like, I'm going to New York for a few days. Can I just work from home? And you really start to realize I don't need to be in an office to do this.
yeah,
So the flexibility of it is pretty amazing. I don't have to worry about when to do things, when not to do things. Like, if I need to have a doctor's appointment in the middle of the day, I just make it without thinking about it.
yeah,
There's definitely trade-offs to it. Like, you have to constantly find work. There's not like a sales team or anything working with you, but it's been good. And I feel like I have learned a ton in the period I've been doing it, just because I've been kind of forced into wearing many different hats that I hadn't had to do in the past. I kind of just showed up to work and did my design stuff, but now I'm having to, deal with billing, deal with like finding work, sales, like all these, like writing contracts and things that I had no really idea about how to do. So
yeah. All that unsexy admin
I
load
know.
is now on your shoulders. Yeah, and by the way, folks should check out the first conversation. You and Jason Cohen have been on the show before together years ago at this point, which is amazing to me, just how time flies. But I don't remember if I asked you this question or not, but who tend to be the sorts of clients who hire you? I mean, when I look at, and again, if folks are going to check this out, they'll look at the artwork on the in the show notes of the album art and what you do for all the music that you put out. But in this realm of like Scott Siskind, freelance graphic designer, like, yeah, who tend to be your clients, or how does it range?
So I kind of taken a pause from doing artwork for bands and stuff for a while, but I kind of started picking that back up in the last few months. So obviously I'm always doing that, but and then I have, for lack of a better word, like corporate clients, like a lot of different web design, or like, videos, things like that. Sometimes people need like social media content designs, like, all those like short videos you see, those
Yeah,
video ads you get on Instagram and whatever, like someone has to make those. And
yeah,
that person is me. No. Yeah. So all sorts of stuff really, which has been
yeah.
cool also.
So yeah, when you talk about corporate, just curious, industry wise, like, are we talking what kind of
Um,
industries?
it really varies. Like some tech stuff, some healthcare, I was doing one a few months ago for like offshore wind, like all sorts of different things, basically. Yeah, just a wide range, I would say.
Yeah, when you say that you're now the sales team or the marketing team, right? Like, are people finding you on Upwork, or how do people find you?
So I was pretty lucky to have a lot of contacts from working at the agency I worked at for a long time.
Mhm.
And I kind of, for the most part, started off with people I knew from there who had either recommended me to someone else, or people had been like, heard you're doing freelance now, I now work at this company, like things like that. And I've just been trying to, continue to build relationships and build off of that. There are also a couple of sites similar to Upwork, but more uh, geared towards designers, called Dribble and Behance and a few others that I use just to like kind of look for some work. Found several things through there. It's really a wide range.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that kind of like did you say it's like a directory where, it's like I'm mapping it onto my world as like Psychology Today profile. If someone's like shopping
Yeah.
for a therapist, it's like, okay, well, they can find out about Robin because Robin pays Psychology Today for a directory listing. Is it kind of like that, but for graphic designers, or?
Yeah, it's like a social network for designers. Like you put your portfolio up and people could, comment on it, and like it's really for other designers to connect with other designers. But
Oh, okay.
there's also a section where they have job postings and things like that. So I found a couple of things on there. I will say this: something I was not expecting coming into this is that some people will like put up scams on there, and I've almost like fallen for it a couple of times. Then I started realizing, oh, there's like people not putting legit stuff up here. So now I'm skeptical about anything I find on any site that's someone I don't know, which is unfortunate.
It is unfortunate. Yeah.
But it does happen.
Yeah, yeah. I guess the cynic or pessimist in me is like, well, we'll be surprised by the human beings' nature here. But okay, so it's kind of like more like B2B networking. Yeah, business to business networking. Okay, so let me retract or not retract, retrace my steps back to like you met Roberta in the tour that you did with E from Vinny Vegas.
Yeah.
I don't know if you shared that story last time, and I would love to hear it. How did you, when did you, what leg of the tour did you meet her? Just what exactly? I mean, because as you, I think, know, I met my wife on my now wife on tour, and that's
I did not know that.
Oh, you didn't know that? Okay, so like when people ask all the time, of course, like, oh, how did you two meet? And they're like, oh, that's such a cool story, and I'm like, hell yeah, it is. Like, and then the fact that you were sort of brothers in that that story, I'm very curious. Like, how did it all go down?
So we met at the show was actually in Naples. She was there basically. So she had offered to give us. She was talking to E at first, and then I came over, and she had offered to give us a tour of Naples, like because she's a tour guide. And we were like, oh, that would be awesome. We're coming back in a few days, because at that point we were like leaving for a few days. I like from the start, I was like, I like this girl, like like. And yeah, so she had offered to give us the tour when we would come back in a few days, and we just kind of kept in touch through there. And then when we came back, like by that point, COVID had already started shutting stuff down, so we didn't actually get a chance to meet up again. But we kind of kept in touch, and then through COVID, like just sort of built our relationship, doing what everyone was doing, like Skype calling and
right, the long distance thing.
Yeah, watching movies, and then you start to really fall for someone, and like, well, this sucks. Now I'm in love with someone who lives in another country during a global pandemic. But yeah, but I mean, it all. I think in the long run, like that was probably all for the best to go through that kind of like hardship in the beginning of a relationship, because it's like if you can stick together through that, like you really have something here,
Yeah.
So yeah, so now I live here, and yeah.
Yeah.
What city did you meet your wife in? I did not know that.
Yeah. So Raven Lounge on South Street in Philly.
Oh, in Philly. Yeah, I played there. Oh yeah. Nice.
Yeah. We that was the first, it was the Very Smalls' first tour, and it was the first show. I think we bypassed Baltimore. I don't think we had a Baltimore gig, and so we played. But my drummer Aaron knew his like friend's friend brought her, and she was like at the time just super, she had swore off dating and was just like, even for her friends, she was like, if you want to hang out with me, like let's eat lunch, because like I'm in school mode and got to finish all this shit. And so the fact that she came out was a miracle in and of itself. And then there was like a DJ going on after us, and we're breaking down our gear, and she offered to, can I help you carry stuff out to the van? And as I'm just like talking with her, I was like, whoa, she's like, not only, so she was with some other guy there. I thought they were together, but they weren't. But the safe thing to is assume she's off the market. She's spoken for. And I'm just like, man, this girl's not only smoking hot, but like has all these interests that are just like, are perfectly suited for me. And then I was kind of goo goo gaga about her, but I had to let her go. We're moving on to the tour, and I don't remember how I came back to. I might have like looked her up on Facebook, and then the interest in her Facebook profile revealed more. Like, is God playing a trick on me right now? Like, this is
one of her interests was Robin Smith.
It's like a fictional character. Like, you like martial arts and like The Simpsons and like what the fuck. Anyway, so yeah, she was foolish enough to put her phone number on Facebook, and so I texted her and I was like, "So you seem to be not real here. What's going on with that?" Like, and I just courted her. And was also goo goo gaga. Of course, it wasn't happening over a global pandemic. Our long distance was the DC area and Philly, and then it's just like as soon as we started, connecting with each other, it was just like the obsessive, like every weekend I'm gonna drive up to you or you come down here, and from there on, it the rest is history. But yeah.
Oh,
So
that's great.
yeah, no, the gods smiled. Okay, so you and E were touring and playing. Were you doing a mixture of Vinny Vegas songs, or was it just to support your solo work?
No, it was a mix of Vinny Vegas songs and some of my solo songs, and then we would even throw a few covers in there. The way that kind of like this was not typically the way was used to touring, because usually over there, like in the States, you like play on like a bill of like 3 to 4 bands usually, and it's like a half hour, 40 minutes. Here they would book us at they were pretty much almost like bar gigs, some of them, not all of them, but some of them were like, okay, you need to play like an hour and a half. So he and I were not really used to doing that, so we were trying to fill it with all the songs we knew pretty much. But at first it was an opportunity to come over here and play shows, which was really cool. And then I had booked a couple of other additional shows in between, which were more kind of typical of what we were used to doing, like the half-hour sets or 40-minute sets. So the show I met Roberta at was, do you know the Sofar Sounds?
I do, yeah.
It was the Sofar Sounds in Naples. So it was like more of like a 40-minute, like a half-hour set or something like that. So it's kind of more what we were typically used to.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't know how international Sofar Sounds was. That's cool.
Yeah, it started in Europe actually, but they have them all over the world.
Okay. Okay. Wow. Yeah. So did you say that you were on your so you were supporting you had to come up with you playing longer sets, and you had to make sure that I'm curious, what were some of the covers that you and E played?
I know we were doing X Factor by Lauryn Hill. I think we did like Everlong, like Foo Fighters, Everlong. That's the other thing. Like people don't necessarily, not everyone speaks English, so we had done this tour twice. This was the second time we were doing it. The first time we learned, not everyone speaks English, but when they hear a song, they know. So we were trying to think of like rock covers that we were familiar with. We did Everlong, Lauryn Hill, X Factor. He would like play Purple Rain by himself.
Yeah.
Honestly, I can't remember what else
but hit radio hits. Yeah.
Yeah, radio hits, but like ones we like,
Of course. Oh yeah.
And I'm not like a cover person. I like really haven't done those kinds of shows before where it's like all covers, but
yeah.
It was cool to just throw a few in there with the originals. It's good.
Yeah. So I want to I want to kind of shift here and ask you about the making of Let It All Calm Me. Tell me how it first, as with is true of every album, like there's a sort of an inception, the seed, the idea, the vision. When did this begin to percolate for you?
So I mean, right at the beginning of COVID, I was, I had just come back from that tour and I had just released the other records. So I was playing guitar a lot, and some of those ideas started forming. I think it really took a while for this one for lyrics to form for me. And I think a lot of what I wrote this record about is like kind of this big sort of transition and this craziness going on in the world around me and inside me also, because a lot of things are changing within me also. I had been single for a very, very long time, and like just kind of like awakening the feelings of like allowing yourself to care for someone and allowing someone to care for you and stuff. Like it kind of opens up all sorts of emotions, all sorts of things. Just kind of questioning and seeing all sorts of the craziness that was happening during COVID, and then during like the BLM protests and all the craziness with, January 6th or whatever, like everything that was going on during that period is a big period of transition. And then once I started traveling over here as well, there's a lot of, you know, finding yourself surrounded by all these new people and a new culture, and then like having new family, having all this new stuff. So I would say the music started early, and then the lyrics took a good while to form for me. But what I had done was I had these like kind of like skeletons of songs, and I had contacted. Do you know John Love by chance? Anyways, a Baltimore drummer. I worked with him on the other solo record as well. He's really good drummer, really fun to work with. So I contacted him when I was like home at one point, like, can we like get together and see like what we can form from these songs? Did that, basically got them to a point where I was like, I think we can like track basic tracks for these. So I got a bass player, this dude Jay Turner, and then E from Vinny Vegas came and played some of the keys parts. We basically like booked one day in the studio, did all basic tracking there, and then I went back and recorded all the guitars.
And are you saying that this was all instrumental, or had you fleshed out the lyrics when you were laying down the tracks in the studio?
I had melodies, and I had like some frameworks of lyrics, like but I was kind of still refining them. So I kind of did all the instrumentals, everything. And then I actually came back to Italy here for 3 months. And during that period is when I like really started refining the lyrics. And once I got back to the US from that trip, I, you know, booked the time to record all the lyrics. Yeah, that's pretty much how it came together.
Yeah. What studio did you record at in the US?
It was, you know, Stages where Jason works.
Yeah.
It was up there, but Evan Kornblum, do you know him?
No.
Anyway, our buddy Evan, he works up there. So he did that and then mixed it with Paul Levitt, who I've been working with for like probably as long as I've been playing music in Maryland.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So, okay. So I'm curious. So it makes sense why there's what's inspiring a lot of the lyrical themes in this album is the craziness of the ages, I guess, the riots, the insurrection, the pandemic, but also the personal stuff, like you say, like when you it's not an understatement when you say I was single for a while, you know. Like I don't know you well enough to know how long it is, or what the track record of what counts as single in terms of like, oh, you know, you're like not serious with someone or whatever. But I guess I'd never met any of any girlfriends or anything like that, right? So
Sure.
so then when you talk about the contrast between that and then the heart essentially like opening, trusting, this like caring for someone else, allowing this intimate vulnerability of someone else caring for you, and being able to capture that not retroactively or retrospectively, but in the moment. And it makes sense why that would all just kind of pour out. Is there a track or I'm curious, like, is there a song in particular that came more free flowing than the others? Because you talked about how there was skeleton with the music, and you'd been toying around with melodies and stuff. But just from as a lyricist, are there? I know for me as a songwriter, sometimes I get blocks, or I'm like I get super critical about, oh no, that's stupid, scratch it out, whatever. Is there a particular song on this album that the flow was just much more effortless than others, or were they all similar in the process?
Yeah, I would say the last track, which is called The Things That We Can't Hold, which was actually what I was going to call the record and then change it. But
why am I not surprised? I'm not. Color me unsurprised. Yeah, go for it.
But that one, yeah, that piano part I was trying to write a piano part to another acoustic song I had, and I think I just had a happy accent, played the wrong note, and I was like, ooh, actually that's kind of cool. And then I just started playing that line over and over again. The lyrics like really just kind of like fell out with that one, you know. It's one of those things you sit down for 20 minutes, you're like, okay, I got a song now.
Yeah.
So that one came very early and very effortlessly. And the first time I was over here visiting Roberta, like, because I was allowed to come for like 3-month periods at a time, was in December 2021, and they have in this house, like, you could probably see there's like very high ceilings in here. So
Yeah.
she has a baby grand in this house, and I was playing it on that and just singing in there, and there's like this like natural reverb in the room that I was just like, so it kind of like takes me back to, obviously there's a lot of feelings going on in that time. So that song is really flowed out pretty effortlessly, and is probably I would say one of the more important tracks to me on the record. They're all important,
I
but
know they're all.
that's one that's special to me.
Yeah, they're all your babies, but I'm not surprised. There's a resonance. There's a different, I don't want to get too nerdy here, but there's a reason why, other than like something just not being exposed and no one knows about it, but there's a reason why when something gets cast out there into the marketplace of ideas or to the consumer of art, that something resonates and then catches fire and is viral or is shareable. There's something that it's hard to put words on it, but the reason why I'm not surprised, Scott, when you say, what was the name of the last track again?
The Things That We Can't Hold.
The Things That We Can't Hold. So there's a soul in my view anyway. There's like a soul to each song, and there's something about that clearly resonated more. I think I made a comment to you on social media or whatever about like I'm not surprised that this one has like a significantly more views than the other ones. And so the fact that you were I don't know if calling it like honest, because that kind of implies that you weren't honest in the other ones. That's not the way to really capture it, but there's a channeling and a flowing from the creative realm that comes through, just like you were saying, like I just have a song now, like the fact that it comes out that way.
Yeah.
I don't know, there's something magical or special about that, and it touches the listener. Like that was the one song where I was like, yeah, this needs to be in a movie. This needs to be, you know what I mean? Anyway, what are your thoughts about what I'm saying? I just put you on the spot?
I understand what you're saying. And I think, that kind of theme also, like the things that we can't hold, really encompasses a lot of what I was feeling. And I think for many reasons, like, during that period, I think for a lot of people, everyone kind of, you start to realize what's really important, and I think the lyric that line, that title comes from, is like, the only things we have in life are the things that we can't hold, meaning like really the only, your material goods mean nothing, like really what matters is your relationships and your, the things that you do with your life, the memories you give to other people, the memories you keep for yourself. And I think that's probably a theme that exists through a lot of my songwriting. I've never been like a super, obviously I have things, but I'm not like a super materialistic person. At least I don't think. And these are the things that I kind of hold dear, like the things that I can't hold, basically.
Yeah.
Light bends around the window pane, and I'm not sure that I can see it all, nor is it for me to say. Every time that you're not here, I feel you around. Every little thing I feel has been holding me down. It's like the only things we have in life are the things that we can hold. Never mind all that we pretend to show. The only time I ever dream these days is when I'm not awake. So I'll lay myself to sleep. Let it all calm me. Let it all calm me down. Let this all calm me. Let it all calm me down.
Yeah, but there's an essence in the feeling tone that the song creates, right? This mixture between the actual messaging, and the messaging can tap in, either just like very obviously or explicitly, or it can sneak in through the back door implicitly and move something in someone's heart. There's the message, and then there's the I'm calling it like the soul of the song, but like when you were describing the tall ceilings and the baby grand and the accidental, ooh, I like that, the way that sounds, and then bringing that together, there is this movement of, all I can do is tell you what it's like for me as a listener. I am curious about you as the composer of that track, is the sort of mixture between gratitude and grief, like appreciation for something that's super beautiful, and then somehow like sorrow filled or pain filled because of its ephemeral nature, or the fact that it's like, well, it could be taken away, and the music, I guess what I'm trying to articulate is that the music helps the heart like acknowledge that, helps the heart unfold and experience that. There are songs that you can listen to and just that they make you cry, and you're like, I wasn't expecting that. And that's the kind of resonance that I'm talking about, that makes it just so, I don't want to call it viral, but like it makes it resonates with so many people, and
Yeah.
I'm curious for you. You were describing writing this record while your own heart connecting with Roberta was like experiencing the contrast between the relationship versus being single, right? And I'm going to use you as a, I can't describe your experience obviously, but just to broaden the lens for the listeners, like the notion of not having an intimate partner, or not having love for a bunch of things, but not having that kind of love, going from knowing like what that is or what that could be, and then actually having the door open, having the heart like be revivifyed by this. That's kind of what I mean by the overwhelming feelings of gratitude and grief. I don't know, again, I don't know how to put it other than that. Do you know what I'm saying by like the potential of losing something that's beautiful, and the gratitude that it's like it's here now, to the point of your can't hold on to it, even if we seem to attach to it, we can't hold on to it. Does that make sense? Yeah, I can tell the freezing. Yeah.
Yeah, you're I think I understood what you said. Could you just repeat that?
Not an
real
opportune
quick,
time
though?
for tech glitches. Yeah, just the nature of, when like the message is like, we can't hold on to that. You were describing about the things, contrasting things that matter in life versus things that don't matter so much, and the things that we can't hold on to are the things that are just beautiful and more valuable. And I was talking about the experience of the messaging and the music. The music sort of opens up and unfolds this emotional experience of overwhelming gratitude and a tinge of pain and sorrow about its ephemeral nature, and that it could be lost. And so the music helps kind of like boost that mixture of that soup of emotions of appreciation, gratitude, but also like grief, like almost like anticipatory grief or something. I don't know. I'm not going to get the words right for everyone when they go listen to this, but I'm curious, since you're the composer of it, like if you can kind of share a little bit about some of the emotions that you experienced while writing it, both the music as well as the lyrics and the messaging behind what it's about.
Yeah, so I'll try. So I always approach songwriting as like, there's some musicians out there like, oh, we write music for the fans, we do it for this. It's like, I don't do that. Like, I'm happy if people like music I've created, but songwriting for me is really like a way that I am able to sort out my own thoughts and emotions. And it's almost this like, I don't feel well until I get this thing out, like this feeling out. And I think in that case, I was acknowledging in the terms of this song, I'm acknowledging, like nothing is permanent, and you kind of have to cherish things while they're in your hands. Like I always get that like kind of stereotypical image of like sand slipping through your fingers. Like a lot of our joys in life, I think, are that like things slipping through your fingers, and they really are able to live on like in your head and your heart. And I think that was, I guess, what I was trying to say in that song. Is this kind of the answer you're looking for? I'm not.
Yeah. Well, I'm not. Yeah. I guess I'm not looking for any particular answer, but just, yeah, you are speaking to the question,
Yeah.
And what was I going to say? Oh, I know. When you were writing it, do you get images in the mind, or just, I'm kind of, for songwriting, it can be different for so many people, and I just like you just contrasted. Some people, they write for a fan base, and you're like, no, I'm writing because I actually feel unwell until it gets out. There's something that's in me, and I it's my responsibility to get it out. And then when I can get it out and honor it, in the way it needed to be honored, then it actually, that unwell feel, that unrest, there's resolution there, at least temporarily, right?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And, I do kind of get imagery in my head when I'm thinking of things, like when I'm writing and especially singing it and like playing through songs or listening back. And that's something I find weird about songwriting. When it's your own song and you go to listen back to it, you can revisit that feeling.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas like as a listener, like there's so many songs for, famous musicians or musicians I love that I listen back to, and I get a feeling of like, oh, this reminds me when I was like, 19 years old and, listening to this song. But as when you write it and you listen back to your own song, it's such a crazy, it's actually like a huge gift as a songwriter to be able to listen back to something you created and have it take you back to an emotion you felt at a certain point in life. You know what I'm saying?
I do. I do.
I honestly, that's kind of one of the reasons I love writing music, is just being able to revisit that and get back to those feelings and remind yourself of who you were at a different point in life. And I don't think everybody really gets that opportunity, especially people that don't create. Some people I know, I've heard, this is maybe off on a tangent, but like heard people talk about like, oh, I have this tattoo because it reminds me when I did this when I was like 23, or I have this one. Everyone has their ways of remembering things, like photographs or things. But for me, it's songwriting, I think, in a lot of ways really takes me back to like certain emotions, and it allows you to remember who you were, but also like see how you've grown, see how you've changed, or not grown, or just changed.
Yeah, no, it's very immersive. It's very immersive. Like the idea, like I was over at, we were dropping our girls off for a sleepover at my brother's house, and my brother got our grandmommy's desk, or like, you know, the thing that like a woman sits down and she's in front of a mirror and she like puts on her makeup or does her hair or
Yeah.
whatever. It's this desk. And I opened up one of the drawers in the desk, and there was some sort of candle in there, and I kind of, it's gonna sound a little weird, but I don't care. I like, there's a candle that I sniffed it. I'm like, okay, well that's a candle. I opened up the drawer below it, and I sniffed it, and I was like, oh, I'm back in grandmommy and granddaddy's house in Glendale, Maryland. Not just back in that location, but back in that time of when I'm this young grandson. You know what I mean? And so and people talk about all the time, the olfactory senses of smell pull you back in time.
Totally.
It can be an immersive experience, but what you're speaking to, and what we're both talking to, I think, is the like the landscape inside that a song produces. Like, it brings you back. Like, let me contrast this from the person who's composing the song versus someone else's song. So I want to use you as an example. The song Ontario, okay? The Vinny Vegas' song Ontario. That song, it's funny how depending on when you listen to a song and what you're going through in that moment, how sticky that song then becomes. So Ontario, it like encapsulates the moment that I'm like, oh, I know this relationship is not gonna work anymore. The lady I was with prior to my wife, like that song, like being in rehearsal, like being like playing it, and then whenever I listen to that song, I'm like, oh yeah, that's like the theme song of this relationship's not gonna work, you know? And so emotionally, but by the way, that's the listener imposing their own meaning onto it. You'd be like, that song's not about that at all, right? From the writer's standpoint.
Yeah, well, Vinny Vegas's goal was always to write music to get you to break up with your girlfriend. So I'm glad that worked out.
That's not true.
You're welcome to your current wife. No, I'm just kidding. Go on. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, but so that's it. But so that's an example of like, and people know this. I know my friend, like, he listened to Yoshimi Battles of Pink Robot, like Flaming Lips, like when he was over in Europe. He's like, I'm just gonna listen to this album over and over and over again. And now that becomes this like sonic artifact. It's like on the pathway of life, you might be, 8,000 miles this way, but then you listen to the album and suddenly you're transported back. It's like you leave a little pebble, or you leave some sort of like sacred gem back there, and then it pulls you back there. So as a listener of music, someone else's music, it happens. And you're describing as a songwriter, for you to go back to that landscape in your mind as the one who was birthing the song. I mean, I could say channeling the song, because it really, I don't know, the view of how this creative stuff gets into us. Where the fuck does it come from? Queens of the Stone Age has the song, right? No one knows, and I think that's what that's about. No one knows where these things come from. They come from a realm. I'll stop myself from nerding out too deep, because I could easily start to expound upon that, the creative space. But back to the point of what it's like writing it and then having it be this like time capsule almost. This, and I was asking you about images. So was there a particular, I want to share with you, when I first listened to The Things We Can't Hold, do you texture in that song? Is there rain texture? Do you have, like, besides the actual music and instrumentation, is there other textures in that song?
Like some so actually throughout the whole record I recorded like these little, like, this is just something I had done on the previous record too, like little field recordings, I guess. But at the beginning of the song, I was taking a walk before I had moved here, like in my old neighborhood in Baltimore, and it was, I guess, fall time, so there's a lot of like rustling leaves on the ground, and I recorded that, and that's what you're hearing at the beginning of the song. But it kind of fades into the music too, so that's probably what you're hearing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's what I mean. This like, I don't know, this texture that's not musical and yet accompanies the music, and basically it gives this like high resolution imagery. For me, it was like a guy and a girl out like by their car or something, and like having a significant moment together. and so that's what I brought to it, you know. But it was just moving. I think I was like laying in bed listening to it, and just really, because it's the last one on the record, it also gives you the opportunity to just sit in the silence, you know, not just moving on and going on to another track, but yeah, it's very beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and so I wanted to ask you, what images, when you were writing it, what images, you say images do come up for you when you're writing music. What images, and maybe you don't remember, I don't know, but I want to ask the question, what images came up for you?
Yeah, so I mean, I very much remember sitting in that. I keep pointing there because the room with the piano's over there, but like sitting in the other room playing that song at points, like not this particular song, but at points in that time when I was writing this, like we would play the piano together, and she would be like sitting next to me on the bench, and then, you know, like I think there's a line, it's like, even when you're not here, I feel you around, like, because at that point I was kind of traveling back and forth, like I was going, you know, back to the States and then able to come here for a few months, and then I'd have to leave again. And it's, you know, it's hard being apart from someone that you love like that. Like it's very hard. And especially during like an uncertain time of when you're going to see each other again. So there's a lot of kind of those emotions in that. I think I had done in the artwork for this record, I had done these like pencil sketch animations that were sort of like what I'm feeling and seeing in my head. It was meant to sort of replicate like diary entries or journal entries. And then that's the only one where it's not just me, it's her and I, like, I'm like lifting her face for a second, and then we like kind of like look at each other and then like look back down. It was like on this looping sort of thing. So I guess to answer your question, like I can show you what I would have sort of envisioning in my head with that. Yeah.
No, that answers. Yeah, you beat me to the punch. I was going to ask you about those sketches. And I remember the image of me, of this like guy and this girl, and it's like they're by this car, and they're just having this significant moment. Again, it's because it's like the end of the night. I'm laying down, so when you're close to going to sleep, the mind is more open and imagistic anyway, for myself anyway. But then, yeah, and then I did look up and notice the sketches. You're right. That's interesting. I didn't think about that. Yeah, this, when you talk about, you know, you're not here. This is where I'm going to nerd out. I can't help it. You're just gonna have to forgive. You have to deal with me here, Scott. There's the physical body, like when you're not with someone. Like, I guess technically you and I are not together right now. We can see each other, but we're not like physically in the same space. But there's the image, the imaginal realm, like I'll use my wife as an example. Like, so she's at work right now. I'm at home, and after we get off this call, like I could close my eyes and imagine not just a memory, not just like an actual thing that happened, but I can actually imagine her presence, and then that can actually be sort of a healing balm to the when the heart is longing for someone and missing someone. Imagining that, imagination, like I think we get in my view anyway, we get the wrong idea when we think that someone's like imaginary, that therefore that makes it any less real. That the imagination can provide sort of comfort when we can relate to someone that we're missing. They don't have to actually be physically there. We don't have to like look at a picture of them. Like I have a picture of my wife and I on my desk, but if I close my eyes, I can, in a sense, kind of call the spirit of my wife into being, and then be there with her in this spirit world or imaginal world.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, it's different. You don't have to do that when you're physically with the person, because their energy and their spirit is already there. You don't have to make any effort to do it. They're there. Versus when you're missing someone, when the heart is longing, you're separated, when you're kind of like what you're talking about is like missing your partner. I don't know if I'm making sense. Am I making sense to you, what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're basically, you're saying like it can kind of, just the thought of that person can kind of like reignite these feelings that you get when the person is in the room, and it like, for lack of a better term, it like warms your heart to think of this person, or like, you know, whatever emotion it gives. Like if it's someone you love, it makes you feel good. If it's someone you hate, it makes you feel angry and irritated. Or is that kind of what you're
Yeah.
going for? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I just think like I'll use an example. My neighbor, the the mom died on Mother's Day. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm just like walking the neighborhood, and the daughter is sitting on the driveway. You know, obviously her world is totally shattered and crushed. And I find out, you know, she lost her mom, and people report when they lose someone that they love, that the spirit of that person can come and visit them and kind of provide comfort. You say warms the heart, but it's like can provide comfort of like, you know, I'm actually, even though I'm dead, like I'm actually safe. Like I'm actually still here. And the presence of when the heart is longing, when the heart is longing for someone that it's missing, that the presence of that spirit comes and then and it's basically a visitation. And then the person, the part of the heart that is grieving and in so much sorrow and pain, suddenly feels comforted and less alone because of that visitation. And what I'm saying is that can happen whether the person's dead or alive. Like my wife's just at work. She's not dead. And I can imagine her, and I'm sort of freely associating to that when you're describing like you missing Roberta at the piano, and able to, when you talk about having like this feeling inside of you that's like it's not right, but like once I can sing it or write it down or put it into this, like it's always fun as a songwriter, like the craft of like putting all the puzzles together, get that out of the nervous system and then into the external world, and then the feeling feels resolved or better. And how rewarding, what a gift it is to be able to then just go visit that, you know, listen to the song again later on. Yeah. When you were writing this album and sketching those things, the drawings, how did you decide that, did you know when you were sketching them that you wanted to have that as like the accompanying artwork, or was it just
so that actually came way later. So here's something for you. Everyone thinks that I did the Vinny Vegas artwork, but I did not actually do the two album covers. The two main album covers, we hired an artist, Michael Miller, for. And I always get compliments on them, like, thanks. I didn't do that though. Like, it's like badass artists that we.
Which albums?
The Big White Whale and Clear the Walls, like the two vinyls we did.
Uh-huh.
And then the one with Ontario, I didn't do either. That was our friend Erin Ellis. She did that. I did Land of Giants, and then I had done like most of the posters and things. But anyways, for this record, I kind of wanted to go back and do the art myself, because I do it for so many. I had like done art for so many bands, and I'm like, this is silly. Like, why am I not doing art for myself?
Yeah.
And I find it very difficult to do. Like, I had even hired another artist to do the artwork for this, and he did the artwork. And then at some point I was just like, I'm going to pay you, but I'm not going to use this. Like, and here's the reason why. And he like totally understood. I think he's a musician also. So he like completely understood. I wanted it to feel really personal. I wanted it to feel like it was coming from me. And I had tried several different ideas, and this is the one that really just felt the most organic. And once I kind of got it down, it sort of, you know, was coming out easier. Just this idea of making these kind of sketches come to life, which in reality, that's what writing music is for me. You know, they're like these little like blips, these little like thoughts, and you have to like kind of take them along and make them come to life. So that's really where the artwork came from. And the weird thing is the album cover is not, I didn't create that until after I had done the animations. And the animation, like the album cover, all you're seeing is one of the animations, each frame of the animation.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now just so that I can. Yeah, you so it was only after the fact. It was only after the fact that you were sketching it out as you were like listening to it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I guess I kind of had this vision in my head the whole time, and I was like trying to think, how can I do this? Can I have someone else do this? And then I got to a point, I was like, I just need to do this myself. Like I wanted it to come from me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean I do, and you don't have to explain it anymore because it's like people get when something at a gut level feeling is either right or wrong. And so you had hired this guy, and you're like, you know what, my heart or my gut, whatever it is, right? Like it's telling me I can't do that. It's sort of betrayal of what like this, and I really do look at it as something alive inside for I think many creatives can understand that. Like there's something alive inside, and it's inside. No one else sees it. It's in this unseen, hidden realm from other people's perspectives, but we experience it in our senses. And then to get it out, I mean, it's pretty weird. I do think about this stuff as being living. Even what's really cool about it is like when you draw just an image, without the assistance of psychedelics, you can stare at an image long enough, and the mind will just begin to generate hallucinations. You don't have to be sick. You don't have to have a disorder. That's just natural, especially if you're low on sleep. Especially if you're low on sleep, that'll happen. But you will create the animations, and it suddenly this thing becomes even more dynamic and more alive. It's the best. It's like how else can you represent something that exists in the imagination, or in what I view as like the spirit world, the world of dreams and stuff? How else can you just manifest it into reality for other people who can't tap into your mind? And it's like, oh, this is, especially when you put it to music, and it's like, oh, this is more of the essence of this, like this living thing that was in Scott, and now other people get to experience it.
Right.
It's, I know it gets a little weird and woo woo, but I mean, I think it's, I don't know, it's ineffable. In some sense, it's ineffable, which is why I keep struggling to try to articulate it.
No, I know what you're saying. Well, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people understand what I'm saying, but I still think it's rather hard to describe. Now I'm going to ask you more of a technical, nerdy question, but what exactly do you use when you're animating? Like what software, or like what does that look like?
Yeah. So for those, all I did was I took a video of myself with the phone, and then there's a technique called rotoscoping, which you basically like draw each frame. So I took that, and then I kind of like traced, 30 frames or 50 frames or whatever it was. So all different drawings. And then I just kind of drop them into After Effects and like loop them, but like kind of old school, like frame by frame animation.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's not, aside from having it in a tool to like, make it actually process the animation, it's pretty much done by hand.
Yeah, as opposed to, it's funny because when you said I took a video of myself, I was like, oh yeah, there is that filter that like makes you look like a cartoon or whatever in the iPhone. But yeah, so rotoscoping, yeah, I mean, I first learned about that with the film Waking Life.
Exactly.
Yeah. But how many stills did you said like 60? How many did you do?
I don't remember. Some of them, I think the one that was the most was probably like 38 or something like that. Some of them were less than others. There's one that's like one of the songs, Piece by Piece, is like, it looks like I'm like underwater, but I really just kind of like drew my face getting closer to the camera, and then drew the water around me. So
you know what?
not,
Yeah. I was just gonna say, I'm really glad you brought up Piece by Piece because I wanted to ask you about that one too. Fun fact, like I believe, do I have my phone on me? I believe on as much as I was talking about when you were sharing it on YouTube, and like the views that the release was getting, like it came out. Did it come out on Groundhog Day, February 2nd?
It did. I didn't know it was Groundhog Day until right now.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know if they have Groundhog Day over here. So
they definitely don't have Groundhog Day in Italy.
I don't think I'm paying as much attention to Groundhog Day this year, I guess.
No, but it's that's actually Aaron's birthday.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but yeah, when I was looking at, pull it up here, Piece by Piece, has the most on Spotify. Piece by Piece has the most listens or downloads or whatever it is.
It's probably because it's the first song on the record, so people go listen to it and be like, I don't want to listen anymore, you know. So
is that why?
That's how we get them. We get them in and then we turn them right away.
So no, I know. No, tell me about Piece by Piece. I'm in a pretty hectic time right now, and if I wish I had more time to have looked through the lyrics, so I had a little bit more preparation to ask you about it, but which is fine. I want to ask you about it though. What is Piece by Piece about?
So that, I mean, the main, I think I started with like the main chorus of that the line, like, how can I ever know what is right when the pull is so strong from both sides? You know, just this idea of like, how do you really know what's going on? Like, how do you really know like what is the right thing to do when you're getting multiple opinions from different people, like getting multiple pulls from different sides? And I had watched this show, Rome. I don't know if you've seen it, heard of it. It used to be on HBO. It's about Rome.
Okay.
It's like before Game of Thrones. It's actually an excellent show. You should check it out. But
Okay.
the guy who plays Mark Anthony in it, there's one line that I had written down, which is just a fantastic line. It's like, life is water, not stone, meaning like life is flowing and it never, you know, stays as one thing. And I always thought that was such a cool line. So for whatever reason, I got this imagery of water, and we had gone to this like river nearby here it's actually where like the sound recording is from this river. And I just kind of like kept picturing being at this river and standing there and everything kind of passing by, and the fact that it's never the same twice, you know? So I guess that song, I used a lot of imagery in the lyrics in that song. But it's really just about kind of trying to figure out what to do next, you know, what's the right thing to do, what's the right way, the right direction to take. I don't think it was necessarily about one thing in particular.
Right, sure.
Just kind of, you know, through all the changes and all the craziness going on at the time, like those are just the words that sort of fell out. And then I kind of took that imagery and crafted that around this idea of what to do next.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've got a lot of thoughts about that, but I want to ask you first, Piece by Piece, if you maybe, what are the pieces referring to? Because I know what you mean by what's right or what's wrong when the force is so strong on both sides. There's a lot to unpack there, but particularly the fact that the song is named Piece by Piece. I'm curious what the pieces are alluding to.
So I think it's the last lyric in the song, actually. It's like, you'll find me here all laid out piece by piece. And I just kept thinking of like these like pebbles and stones like washing down a current and then ending up in this like dried riverbed. And they still all wind up in the same place, but they're maybe not the same as they were when they first started out. You know what I'm saying? So I, you know, picture myself getting pulled apart and pulling in all different directions and stuff. And then I have this like imagery of like lying on this dried out riverbed, like literally laid out in different pieces, for lack of a better word. Yeah.
Right. In a different organization than one was before they entered the river, you know, upstream.
Right.
I guess.
But still whole,
Yeah.
or not whole,
Still
but
whole.
all there.
Yeah. Yeah. Not scattered, not lost, not fragmented to, you know, in a pathological way, but just when we talk about piece by piece, that's it's interesting when you were saying that. I was like, that sounds like the description of a psychedelic experience, which is to have the self kind of blown apart and then put back together again. You know, but you're describing it in the flow of life. Life is water, not stone, as this guy said. It made an impact on you. Yeah, that's really cool. Thanks for sharing that. The notion of how do we know what's right when the pull is so strong from both sides? In my day job, people come to me because they're suffering, and they're either suffering, you know, there's a whole countless flavors of suffering, but it's relational. Suffering is relational. And when you were describing, like, people like give you their opinions or they influence you, and they're on both sides of some sort of a debate or an argument, or, you know, a dilemma, right? That people have the same polarizations in the outside world. They have them inside, you know.
Mhm.
Like, let's say the person's struggling with an addiction of some sort, right? Like, there's the piece of them that's like, let's go do this thing, and then the other side, it's like, that's wrong, like, don't do it. And it's like, okay, the force is so strong from both sides of this, and yet it's happening inside of me, and sometimes A wins and sometimes B wins, and I'm also like, can be this witness to both sides, as opposed to just having side A is possessing me and now I go do the thing that I'm addicted to, or side B happens to be winning or possessing me and now I'm not going to go do the thing I'm addicted to. When those two things can separate, and the person can see that those two things are not them, they're both parts of the polarization. And then, like, how do I know what to do when both sides are so strong? Well, what seems to work, at least in the inside world, maybe it does work in the outside world, is basically just listening to each side, but taking turns. Not like going into a classroom and having kids like who don't know how to take turns and they just shout over each other. I say kids in a classroom, but you can point to Congress, you can point to a bunch of adult instantiations of that, right? But like, taking turns, like this, like, let's hear from this side. Can I hear from just this one side? And if the other side is like, no, it's like, okay, what if I reassure you that I'm not going to I'm not going to join forces with this side. I'm not going to let them win. I'm not going to let them take over. I just want to hear what they have to say. I'm not going to take any action. I just want to learn about what they want to say. So if one can reassure one side of a polarization that we're just going to listen to it, we're not going to take any action, then usually it calms down. And literally inside, you can ask these two sides of a polarization to just go into a waiting room. Like, okay, like, go into the waiting room and I'll listen to this one side, and then when it's done, it'll go into a separate waiting room, and then you'll come in and I'll talk to you. But the whole idea is, like, we'll just take turns. We'll go one by one, piece by piece. Well, I'll hear from you. I'll hear from you. And then maybe after I hear from both sides, then maybe I can ask both of these sides of the polarization, would you be willing, maybe just as an experiment, to just meet together?
Yeah.
Like, again, to make this less abstract and more concrete, let's just say, like, alcohol addiction, like the part of me that drinks and the part of me that, like, judges me and calls me a piece of shit, like the morning with a hangover, whatever. I'm not saying I do this, but I'm just using it as a common example. So, like, talking to the drinking part is like hated on by others in the family. Oh, this person is like losing their life, they're throwing their life down the drain. Anyway, yeah, if you just talk to it and listen to it, and then talk to the judge who's like, that one's a piece of shit, and, like, doesn't it know that drinking is bad and it's bad for health and, you know, bad for finance, whatever, right? Like, then hear one-on-one from both sides of this strong polarization. Both sides are so strong, but when you can listen to them one at a time and then invite them to come together and be like, would you be willing to kind of like, let's huddle up at like, let's sit down at a conference table. It's like, would you be willing to talk to each other? And then me being, let's say, Robin, being able to just like facilitate an interaction between two sovereign beings with their own free will, and then kind of coming to some sort of like a resolution or an agreement. Oh, I didn't see it that way. Oh, this is why I'm doing this. Oh, now I have a new perspective instead of just having them fight. So people are built this way. Everyone's walking around with it, with an internal war or an internal battle about something. It doesn't have to be addiction, about something, you know. So anyway, I just wanted to I wanted to speak to that because it's what you're tapping into with that song Piece by Piece is such a universal phenomena. Like and again, I guess you were talking about more in the outside than on the inside, you know, like other people like having opinions and not knowing what to do. So does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Just you're saying like the lost art of hearing the other perspective like could be so beneficial. Like if you're only listening to like one side of things, you're going to eventually be pulled to that side, but maybe the other side is presenting some other good points.
Yeah.
And instead of hating, or instead of joining one of those sides and, you know, pinning them both against each other, you're kind of saying like, try to take the best parts of each one and come to some sort of compromise. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's like, yeah, they're not, you know, each side of a polarization kind of demonizes the other and like strawmans the other, takes the worst, interprets it in the worst possible way.
Right.
And so it's like, if we can actually get some space and take turns, and as the listener, not listening with like a presupposition or an assumption or judgment, but just being open. I mean, I think about, there's another Scott Siskind song that I associate too freely very often, Scott. I don't remember what it's called, but there's a line in it that says, be open. You sing it over and over again. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's called Sleeping Cliffs. It's like kind of like a quieter song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that song, and it's like that. that's the anthem that I want to like give all of my clients when they're closed off. You know, the reason why sides are polarized is because they're not actually open. They're not actually open. They are attached to their agenda of getting the other side to see it their way.
Right.
Which is true on this side too. And so you're in perpetual gridlock. So what I'm saying is like, if we can reassure both sides of a polarization that they'll each get a turn and that no one's taking sides, no one's gonna, just because we give this one a turn doesn't mean it wins. You know, we're just giving it space to hear it out. And again, people can take an example of what I'm saying and be like, okay, Robin, how about Marjorie Taylor Greene and Jewish space lasers? You really want to like listen to her perspective here? And it's like, actually, yes. Like, give someone saying something that seems absolutely nuts and crazy. It's like, okay, that's what it seems like. Give them space. Let them give them respect. Treat them with dignity. Treat them with personhood. Let them say their piece and what they need to say. And then when you understand it, it's like, okay, now they feel seen, heard, understood. You can say, oh, okay, given all of that, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, and a lot of that has been lost in society. Like a lot of that internally and externally. Like people feel, I need to be on this side of this. I need to do this. Like, and you're right. Like just kind of hearing people out, whether you agree with them or not, but like giving them respect to hear their opinion, even when they're not giving you the same respect. I feel like that can hold a lot of weight in society. And we really don't do that like in the same way that we used to. Like,
yeah. And Yes, and in from my perspective, and again, just in my industry, for people who might be listening to this episode who have no idea what I do for a living, like I'm a therapist, and people, um, in adulthood, when people don't feel understood, they don't feel seen. And by the way, when you say like listening, like you don't have to agree or disagree. It's not even about agreeing or disagreeing. It's just about understanding. It's just like, oh, that's valid from that point of, given everything you just said, I can perspective take, and I can understand why you would see it that way, given everything that you are carrying or holding or where you are, right? Like, so it's not about agreeing whether it's true or not true. That's off the table. Objective truth claims off the table. We're just saying, oh, does that make sense? Oh yeah, that makes sense. What I was saying is, people in childhood, when people feel misunderstood by their caregivers, by mom or dad, or both, then in adulthood, when they're trying to get understanding and be seen and heard and understood, and they're not being given that, and they're like, no one gets me, no one understands, those wounds of not being seen, heard, and understood in childhood they're protected by this big energy that fights, and it's fighting, on behalf of that little wounded child that like never felt, was always misunderstood by its family.
Yeah.
So even though we like have adults who are mature, we're all susceptible of like essentially regressing, like when we dig our heels in, or when someone challenges our perspective and they say no, and then it just the energy just jumps up big. So I just want to commend, like, the what you tap into in that song is very universal, and it's a fair, I guess I was rising to the challenge, not that you were asking, but like, you're like, what do you do, how can you know what's true, how can you navigate a situation when both sides are so dug in, or both are so strong? And the art of listening non-judgmentally and respecting people, and the last thing I'll say about it is trusting that they can actually untie this knot together if all that big fighting energy can just relax.
Mhm.
and give space, which is very hard to do. I mean, I'm talking about it all like in theory. In practice, it's very hard to do.
Oh, yeah.
And I would also just invite, that my work is not, it's both helping people do that externally, but it's really valuable to learn how to do that inside. You can do that inside. You can do that with the pieces of yourself. You can absolutely, that is, in my view, the basis for how people heal trauma and heal those earlier wounds. It's learning about who exactly are these parts, who are these pieces of me, that are jumping up big and that are polarized, that seem to be just ever like endlessly locked in gridlock, Anyway, I'm totally now on a diatribe. I've been preaching for the last like 20 minutes to you. I apologize.
Okay. I like it.
Yeah. What's on the horizon for you, Scott? What are you working on now? What are your projects?
Musically?
Yeah.
So I've been kind of slowly getting back into writing some stuff. Right now, just kind of tinkering around with ideas. Nothing really solid at the moment, but I'd like to do. I finally bought my own little microphone, and finally got like a copy of Logic after playing music for 20 years or whatever. I had always hated that aspect. I never bothered to learn how to record, but now that I'm out here, I want to learn how to at least do some acoustic demos or something, things like that. So that's been kind of fun to mess around with.
Scott, can I just jump in and say, you bought a fancy mic and you're not using it on this interview? How dare you?
I had looked up how to do it, and then it was
No, I'm just shitting. I'm just giving you a hard time. No, so you with that mic. When did you get that mic?
I don't know, last year sometime.
Yeah. What do you use for an audio interface?
It's this thing. It's called a Volt 76.
Okay.
Universal Audio.
Yeah.
I basically had contacted 2 or 3 recording friends, and I was like, all right, here's my budget. Tell me what I can get that I can just record like basic tracks that will not sound like I recorded them on my phone, which I also use my phone to record a lot of ideas. But
yeah, I think a lot of people do. How
yeah,
did you decide with Logic versus another
versus Pro Tools or something?
Yeah. What's
I know a lot of people have been using Logic, and honestly, I thought it was maybe a little easy. Was going to be easier to use.
User friendly.
I don't know. I just kind of landed there because it's what other people I knew had been using.
Sure.
Yeah.
I interrupted you though. Yeah, what were you saying? What's on the horizon for recording and stuff?
So no recording plans at the moment. I did a couple of shows like in the past year or so, but not a ton, not anywhere near the capacity I'd once been doing. I'd like to, continue to get out and do a couple shows here and there, maybe later in this year. And really trying to like find my footing out here. Like obviously I live in a whole new city now, whole new thing. So kind of see what the music scene around here is about and really just keep writing. I mean, that's my main goal at the moment is to just keep writing.
Yeah. Keep writing and recording it and sharing it. How about your because I'm curious if you've banked more time in. My assumption, Scott, is that you've banked more time writing in a group, in a band, than individually. But I'm also like, but that doesn't mean that Scott wasn't like also just concurrently in a parallel track, like writing stuff for his own solo stuff. So I'm just kind of curious about, to what degree do you feel called to do any kind of like band co-creation stuff versus the solo artist track?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to do that. At the moment, I don't have a car out here or like, the means to communicate with people in that way. That is something like, even if you find musicians, I don't have the language skills to necessarily be able to communicate in that way. I take it for granted how lucky I was to be, to play with the guys in Vinny Vegas for so long. Cause we had kind of built, over years of playing together, the ability to communicate in certain ways to be able to write songs together. And now with everyone living far apart, and me especially living far apart, the likelihood of us, sitting down and doing that on a regular basis at the moment is probably not very likely. But I do miss that a lot. Like I think a collaboration with the right people brings out the best ideas for sure. Especially for myself, because I feel like instrumentally I'm a little bit limited in what I can do. Like I know how to play guitar kind of, but I'm not like the greatest guitar player in the world. You know what I'm saying? Like I kind of like know where my shortcomings are when it comes to that. So to have someone come in that can, expand upon ideas or give me different ideas of where to go in certain places, that's something I definitely miss.
Yeah. And you mentioned how, as you were talking, I was thinking I was kind of fantasizing on the solo record, like the second one that you released. Did Scott because you know how to play drums, right? I mean,
I do, but I'm, especially at this point, I'm like so out of practice that I wouldn't want to record my own drums. Like,
yeah.
There are better drummers around. I'll just say that. On the first solo record, I did record all the keys parts. But this one for the I recorded the 2 piano songs, but the stuff where there's like Rhodes or organ stuff, I thought E would do a much better job, which he did, than what I could have done.
Sure.
It's just, it's a different way of thinking.
Yeah.
And obviously like a different skill level, like people have with their own instruments sometimes.
Yeah. Well, man, I wish you the best of luck and success on your journey of not only mastering the Italian language, including the dialect and where you are, so that it can help foster bridges to be able to do something like you said, that sometimes the best stuff comes out of the collaboration, but also that you get Even a Vespa, something wheels. I don't know. Be like, well, if the gear's at your place, I just need to carry my own self. My mortal remains here on this Vespa or whatever.
I will have a car eventually. I have to actually. Here's a fun fact: you have to take driver's ed again, basically, when you move here. So,
oh yeah,
trying to get through that at the moment.
okay. Yeah, I want to ask you before we close. I don't ask everyone this, but I was while you were talking, I was like, oh, I subjected Jason Cohen to this, so I was like, I want to get Scott's take on this, and which is the bonus round, lightning round, James Lipton questions. So ask your Scott Siskind parts. That's like, do I need to prepare an answer? Ask all of them to relax, and just the first thing that comes to your mind. And you can also pass. But if you've ever watched Inside the Actor Studio with James Lipton, you already know these questions. So I want to hear your answers to them. Okay. You ready, Scott?
Sure.
You're like, all right, now you've just built it up. Oh, hold on a second. Let me get this here where I can see you. All right. And you got to go listen to Jason's answers.
I did, actually. I don't remember what he said, but
oh, you did? Oh shit. Okay. All right.
It was so long ago. I don't remember what he said.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right. So Scott Siskind, what's your favorite word?
Food with a question mark afterwards.
What is your least favorite word?
Politics.
What turns you on?
Food.
What did you say?
No, does it have to be a one-word answer? Is that how it works?
No, not at all.
No. Art with meaning behind it, like art and music with depth to it and a story and meaning.
What turns you off?
I would say people putting down people that are not good at something, that are just starting off on something, like basically like cutting a dream short. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, absolutely. Someone has potential, someone can grow, and then they're just shit on, and then that potentiality never gets to be expressed.
Yeah.
Or it gets delayed by decades in terms of how. Yeah. Okay. What sound or noise do you love?
I don't know. I like the sound of rustling leaves, like the sound on that on the record, I guess.
Okay. What sound or noise do you hate?
Probably the sound when you get an email from Outlook. You know,
okay.
You know, anyone that's worked in corporate America knows the sound I'm talking about.
Yeah, I actually am blessed enough to not know the sound, but that's the answer.
Consider yourself lucky.
It's fantastic. What is your favorite curse word?
Well, since I'm in Italy now, one word they say a lot is cazzo. I think it either means dick or fuck. I'm not sure, but you hear it all the time. It's a fun. Cazzo. It's a good one.
And for those just listening, Scott had to look over his shoulder a couple times before he learned. Cazzo. Okay.
I hope it doesn't mean anything super offensive. If it does, I'm new here, so
yeah, no, yeah, that's just the intention. All right. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
I don't know. I thought this is a really weird one, but I thought that if I had to do something more of like a trade, I think I could be okay at being like a physical therapist.
Is that right?
I don't know. I've never tried it, but maybe.
That's cool.
It's like you're helping people, but I don't know. I just like the idea of it. Like you're helping relieve people of their pain, basically, and helping people like get back to like a better point physically, which is cool.
Yeah. What profession would you not like to do?
Accountant.
No hesitation. Okay. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Food with a question mark.
Okay. God's asking you if you want food.
Yeah.
Okay. Scott Siskind, where can people find your work, find out more about you? Where do you want people to check you out?
Sure. So all the music and stuff is on Spotify under Scott Siskind, Instagram at Scott Siskind, and then I have a art page for all my illustration stuff. It's Scott Siskind Art on Instagram, YouTube, any of those places that you'd find music. Just search my name. It's not a terribly common name, so I'm probably the first one to come up for it. At least if you're looking for music stuff.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Scott, thanks so much for coming on the program.
Dude, thanks for having me. This is a lot of fun. Wish I can give you a high five in person, but I'll settle for a digital one for right now. So.